Hello, elegant listeners, and welcome to Go! My favorite sports team. We haven't yelled in a while, so I felt like really lashing out. I'm your host, your master of balls and holes, Tyler Scheid, joined by my fellow host, the man with the glorious hair. It's like your mustache seems more prominent today.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know why, but the mustache is part of your facial hair is popping more.
Thank you very much.
It was like a fantastical mustache. Yeah.
Thank you.
I feel like you're judging my statement.
I feel like I'm being judged. That's why I'm saying it like this. Thank you.
I'm not judging you. I think you look great. Why is that? Why?
I don't know about this. I don't know about this, guys. Something seems wrong here.
Why? What seems wrong? Explain.
I don't know. Something's off. I think you've been replaced.
By who? Is it my eyes? Are my eyes different for you? Is that what it is?
Are your eyes different?
I can see 20/25 now. I used to only see 20/40. So they're much better. They're improved.
Why could you only see 20/40 before?
So I had to get one of my eyes redone because the lens rotated, but then they put the new one in. So now I can see 20/25.
Oh, right. You got eye implantable contacts. Oh.
Yeah, I got what MatPat had, Evo ICL.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know. I completely forgot about that. But anyway, I'll forget the insults of this beginning of the episode if we can dive into some interesting conversation topics.
Sure. Did you hear about this guy named Harrison Butker?
No. Hilarious name. Hilarious name.
So he's a Chiefs football player. He's either the kicker or the punter. I can't remember. He's a kicker. It just says football kicker. I don't know if you heard about this, but he did a speech dissing working women with regards to his graduation speech, basically telling women, I listened to the speech and it was like saying, yeah, you guys just spent a lot of money to just become wives and stuff. And, people are happier if you're just a wife and have kids and stuff.
Ironically, Harrison Butker's mother is a medical physicist at Emory University in Atlanta.
Obviously, I don't agree with him at all, but why did they let him speak, first of all? Did they not vet his speech?
From what I heard about that situation is that the college is I believe it's a private religious college, is it not?
Maybe.
That's what I heard. I'm not 100% sure about that. I believe that the demographic for that speech, which I also do not agree with, skews towards those ideologies. The trad ideologies, if you will.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out. It is Benedictine College.
Let's see. Benedictine. No, that's something else. That's something else. Benedictine College. And here's the thing. What stones this guy has to get up in front of probably an audience filled with women and just say, fuck all of your choices so far. It's your true happiness. I would know. Oh, man.
I know your happiness. Mark, I know your happiness too, by the way. As a man, I know your happiness.
No, you can't know my happiness. We as men only know what women's happiness are.
Oh.
All women and only women, they don't know what a man's happiness is either. It's an enigma. It doesn't exist.
Nobody knows. It doesn't exist. I just would listen to the speech and I was like, dude, I feel like we went back 3 centuries.
It's actually not that far because those ideas still exist en masse today. And it's fine if people want to have the lifestyle where there's plenty of people that are stay-at-home moms and that's what they want to do. And that's great for them. That's the beautiful thing about America is that you have a choice it's the pursuit of happiness. However, if we all look in the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence, wherever that quote was, it didn't really outline what the definitions of happiness were, but thank God Mr. Buttman here told the world exactly what happiness was.
Well, the part of it that baffles me the most, first of all, obviously he's a professional football player. That doesn't mean anything. He
throws a ball, whoop-de-doo. He goes running on a field, whoop-de-fuck, okay.
Basically what I'm saying, there's nothing that makes us should we listen to this guy over any other person? Yes, he has a more well-known name because he's a famous famous football player. But the part that threw me off is it's literally at graduation. And like you said, saying it to a bunch of women in the audience who have also gone to school and gotten their degree, and basically telling them that their degree is useless, that they would be happier if they did what his wife does. And it's fine. His speech is not fine. It's fine if that's what you want to do, but saying that to people who have other endeavors or other dreams and stuff, that's the part that threw me off. And obviously he's rightfully getting backlash for this speech. I still can't fathom what got into his head, why this was okay. I still don't understand, even if it was an old traditional like religious school, even knowing the days that we live in now, the world we live in now, for him to be allowed to give that particular speech.
Yes, it is interesting because the framework with which we are able to have these freedoms is also the framework that can lead to them being lost. And that's why constant vigilance is important.
But that's the bad news. That's the only bad news thing that I found recently. We're going to jump to a much cooler, interesting news thing. So there's this revolutionary new football shirt that helps deaf fans be able to experience watching the game. So European football, not American football. And so these special jerseys are worn by deaf people when they attend games. And the way it works, these jerseys have microphones basically all around the stadium. There are microphones all around the stadium. And the jerseys are equipped with sensors that then detect noise levels. And the software encodes that data and then sends a signal to the shirt's receivers, which then light up and vibrate in synchronization ways to make them feel more like involved with the crowd, feeling the excitement that the other people do from like the cheering and the noise.
Oh.
So it actually enhances their experience as deaf fans to be able to then be in the moment with those that can actually hear what's going on and are cheering and yelling. And
that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Okay, that's also not where I thought you were going to go with it, because for some reason you said deaf. I heard blind, and I'm like, oh, it'll vibrate like where they are on the field. Aha! That'll help those deaf people really hard. They wouldn't know where the players were otherwise. Oh, I see. And I was about to bring up, that thing. There's a heartwarming video of a guy with his blind friend at a soccer game, and he's tracing the position of the players on the guy's back so the guy knows where the players are, and he's able to like, oh god, and then he's obviously talking to him the whole time. Yeah, I was wrong. So anything I was gonna say, just throw it out the window.
No, but it's really cool because it makes them feel included, right? And the biggest thing that we started this podcast about, and why I love this article in particular, is we wanted to make people feel included in the sports area that a lot of times they're ostracized or don't feel that there's a way in. And so this is another way that is an enhancement within the experience for fans to be able to enjoy being at a game so much more, despite their disability of being deaf.
And that's really something special, because there's a certain phenomenon that I can never remember the name of. That's the thing that describes what happens when a bunch of humans get together in a group and they experience something all at the same time. It's why concert going can be addicting. It's why sporting events are fun. It's just it's a phenomenon that happens because we're social creatures, and to include more people is good.
Being able to feel involved and connected, that's really cool. The rest of these are just basic headlines I wanted to read out. Nelly Corda dominates the LPGA Tour as she captures her 6th win in the last 7 starts. So the last 7 times she's been in the LPGA Tour, this is now her 6th win of the entire tour.
Oh, congratulations.
So she's been dominant. She's the world #1, and she rallied in sudden death victory in her hometown.
What sport?
This is golf.
Okay, put it in perspective. Put this in perspective. Okay, put it in perspective of a birthday cake. Make it into a birthday cake analogy.
Imagine you're turning 7. When you were 1, you couldn't blow out that 1 candle.
No way.
But the last 6 birthdays, including this one, you've been able to blow out all of the candles and gotten all of your wishes granted.
Whoa.
You've dominated.
Yes.
You've been the best birthday cake candle blower outer in the world.
Hell yeah.
For the last 6 years.
Oh my God. And it also this year.
Yes, and this year.
And with every year, the wish gets better.
Exactly.
I now can relate to this.
Another time. All right, this one's going to be fun.
Okay.
Manchester United shocks Manchester City, 2 different teams, in the English FA Cup final with its 2 teenage scorers, young new bucks, making history, scoring their 2 goals. What?
Call them any other thing.
Young kickers.
No, an animal. Let's make it another animal.
Young clownfish.
That's a good choice. They're 2 young clownfish, ready and eager. Crawled out of their anemones and decided to kick up a storm.
And so to put this in perspective, it's like your brother who's beat you up a whole bunch of times. You could never beat him.
Fuck that hoe.
Well, you just beat him up and took the trophy away.
Take that, Thomas. Yeah, I get it now. I relate. This is great.
All right, and the last headline I have today is Caitlin Clark hits a late 3-pointer to finally give the Indiana Fever their first victory of the season over the Los Angeles Sparks.
How many times have they played against the Sparks?
This season, well, I mean, overall, a lot. I don't know how many times they've played the Sparks. It's early on in the season, but it's the fact that Caitlin Clark was 2 assists away from a triple-double, so she scored double digits. She had double-digit rebounds and then had 8 assists, so she had an incredible game.
You're losing me. I need an ice cream analogy.
You got 3 ice cream cones, right? You can only fill them up as much as you can.
Okay.
So your first ice cream cone is your points.
Okay.
You got 12 scoops.
Holy shit.
No more than that. So you have that one stably set.
Okay.
Now it's time for you to try and catch all of the scoops. Now they're falling from the sky. Before you were shooting them onto the cone. Now they're falling from the sky and you got to catch them. And now you get, I think, 12 of them.
Okay.
All right. And now you're getting your 3rd scoop and you're like, man, I've gotten double digits twice. But now you got to assist. So you're behind the person who's has the cone in front of them, but you're their arms, right? So you stick your arms out without being able to see, and you got to stack the scoops on top. They got to direct you, but you got to stack them, and you get 8.
Fuck.
It's not double digits, but that's a lot of scoops.
Damn it. That's a really good analogy, though. I think the third one, though, you're throwing the ice cream and someone else is catching. Would that be?
Oh, that's a better analogy for assists. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I like that. That's fair.
Now I get it. Now I get why triple double. Now I get it. Double triple double.
Triple double. So technically, she got a double double, but she was just shy of the triple double.
This is the truest our podcast has ever been. I want you to know that this is the core of exactly what we've always striven for. And yes, that's a word. No one look it up. Striven. We've striven for this. Don't look it up.
I'm not looking it up. I was closing windows because we're done with the sporting news.
We are helping break down sporting terminology and ideas for the public.
That's the goal. Well, now we're getting into the actual topic.
No, we're not. I have news.
Oh?
I have news. Wait, let me pull up the news. I was thinking you were going to mention it, but you didn't mention it.
It might have been on my list, but I cut it for some other reason.
No, because a huge piece of news occurred just over 2 days ago.
Oh, that might be why I'm looking at more recent stuff.
An enormous thing happened. Something that we've talked about many times on the podcast before. NCAA athletes will now be paid by their colleges.
Oh, what?
Yes, colleges will now pay their athletes, or at least they will let colleges pay their athlete. But this article on ESPN, written by Dan Murphy and Pete Thamel, the NCAA and its 5 power conferences have agreed to allow schools to directly pay players for the first time in the 100-plus year history of college sports. The NCAA and its leagues are moving forward with a multi-billion-dollar agreement to settle 3 pending federal antitrust cases. The NCAA will pay more than $2.7 billion in damages over 10 years to past and current athletes. Sources said the parties also have agreed to a revenue sharing plan allowing each school to share up to roughly $20 million per year with its athletes. That I thought you were going to bring this up, Tyler. That was like the biggest news I saw.
Holy crap. That is massive.
It's massive. It's
How did that not pop up in my sporting news search?
I don't know, but I like the ice cream analogy. I like that.
The ramifications of this are insane. Like, I could do an entire episode of this because the idea of amateur athleticism, the problems that roll into Title IX, if you know about the balance between women's athletic opportunities in college versus men's athletic opportunities in college, creating a balanced dynamic with that. The pay for play aspect of this, the truth of the matter is this could absolutely crumble everything that has to do with amateur athletics and collegiate athletics. It absolutely could decimate it. And there's been talk about this of moving to club programs where people join and then get paid on club programs. But this could be absolutely detrimental to the education link dynamic with sport at the collegiate level, even to the point to where it can start interfering and messing with high school.
You know what we should do? Because this is such a big event, we should do a preliminary research dive into this right now and then talk about it in full once you have a better grasp of what the actual things are down the road, because this is a very big thing. So what I'm going to do up first, while you look up some other things, I'm going to look up what these 3 cases are. There's 3 cases that were antitrust cases, and all 3 of them got settled at once because of this payout. One is called House versus NCAA. One is called Hubbard versus NCAA, and the other is Carter versus NCAA. And I'm going to look up exactly what these are because all of them got settled, but I don't know what they are.
I mean, one of the biggest things, this is something, the pay for play dynamic of college athletics is a big focus of a lot of my papers that I did while I was in school. So this is something that I actually heavily focused on. So some of these things that I can mention off the top of my head that are a problem with the relation to it. One of them is that it completely destroys the whole educational system that's tied to it. It's to the point to where these entities, if they're being paid, they are then becoming officially professional athletes. It's creating a harder issue that a lot of faculty and educational institutions have with big athletic programs. And it's that guys go there or girls go there, primarily guys go there just to play the sport. They don't care about going to class. They don't care about anything to do with the educational system. They're there to just play football, basketball, you know, the big money making sports, and then go on to then go pro. And so they don't go to class. They don't have the respect for the school and facilities and all of that, to where if they're now getting paid for it, now you're going to start getting into, all right, well, jersey sales, all right, name, image, and likeness, agents getting involved. You know, they already opened the door massively with the gambling aspect, but now there's even more money to be had for these collegiate athletes to then be able to be taken advantage of by outside sources. So it takes away the dynamic of amateurism, of where the education was important, which means scholarships for athletics are kind of going to go away.
Damn.
If they're getting paid, they're going to be like, well, I don't need to cover your education now because you're just coming here to play anyway. So it's going to create a divisive entity where the athletic department is going to become a private for-profit entity and separate from the state-funded institutions, the schools.
Are you absolutely sure about that? Or you think it's going to split entirely?
In order for this to work, how they're doing the payout, it will eventually happen. That is anticipated. That is what I anticipate happening, because there's going to be too many conflicts of interest that will come into play in this.
What does it mean for the entire education system that is so, in America especially, so heavily rooted in sports? Like, with that schism and what you're saying about it, it means like the entire college experience, a lot of it revolves around students, even not student athletes, going to sporting events and like participating in rallies and like getting excited about it, rooting for your team. A lot of school spirit originates from sports itself.
There's a large part of that to where that might completely go away. The hurrah, hurrah. But the problem is with this, again, when you get into the collegiate system, there are the programs that make money. There are I think there are only 9 D1 athletic departments that have revenue. They operate in the black, in that they make money. The rest of them lose money. And now a lot of people would be like, well, that's not necessarily true because people are donating all this stuff. They pay a lot of money for these facilities. I get that, but the way the contributions for that are not classified as the red or black line for that, it has to do with ticket sales, attendance, and then the overall cost of stuff. And yes, I will agree there were massive problems with regard to coaches. Coaches were overpaid while the athletes got nothing except for their education. But now what is getting the student, why are they tied to the school?
You're not just going to have people leaving for other schools. You're going to have traded students. That's bizarre.
It's literally going to become what professional sports were and are. And the reason these, and looking at these, a lot of these had to do with antitrust, right? It had to do with the fact that people were barred from going straight to the professional rankings in sport by the NFL themselves. We talked about this. You have to be 2 years removed from high school to join the NFL. The NBA, there were a couple times that they'd allow people to go straight from high school to the NBA, like LeBron James, but that had gotten taken away and now got put back. So it created this, everybody had to go to the NCAA, and the NCAA became the minor leagues. And that's why those cases in a lot of ways were won. And the amount of money that is made from the big ticket items like the championship bowl series for football, and then also the NCAA basketball tournaments. Because the media rights, the attention they get, everything that comes into that sponsors, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. And the athletes are the backbone of it and never got any pay for it, which I understand the problem, why there was an issue with that. But what people don't realize when they look at that, and this is the part that where my element came in, why I said pay for play was a bad thing, is because those sports fund the other sports that people don't watch. You know, women's basketball has been on the rise, but it wasn't always that case. You've got field hockey, you've got water polo, you've got swimming. I mean, the amount of athletics that are still ingrained in the school that they're covering, wrestling, that dancing, tons of stuff that doesn't make money, was being funded because the other ones made money. It created a balancing act. And then with Title IX, there's a three-pronged test, the most of which people look at as proportionality. But there's an equality of the amount of spending that had to go into women's athletics as men's athletics. But the men's programs were the ones that made money, the basketball and football programs. And even to this day, the WNBA operates at a loss. It is not a profitable professional entity. It is subsidized and paid for by the NBA. And so this whole pay-for-play statute is well, now if the men's athletes are getting paid, the women's athletes have to be getting paid. How do you classify this? Are they going to be paid individually based on position? How do you value add that? Is it there's a lot of things that have to be figured out that is going to make it extremely difficult for it to be tied to the athletic, the institution. And so what I'm imagining is you're going to have the big football programs and the big basketball programs leaving, and maybe some sports stay in there, but even that's difficult to tell.
So here's more information about it. Let me just give a brief overview of the court case itself. There's a very small Wikipedia article on it, and then it goes into more detail in some other things that I've found. So the full name of the case is Grant House and Sedona Prince versus National Collegiate Athletic Association et all those bastards. It is a settled class action lawsuit brought against the National Collegiate Athletic Association of five collegiate athletic conferences in which the NCAA agreed to allow its member institutions to distribute funds to Division I athletes who have played since 2016. So originally, this was filed because of a swimmer from the Arizona State University, a swimmer named Grant House, and a basketball player named Sedona Prince. House and Prince sought name, image, and likeness damages and an injunction to force the NCAA and affiliated athletic conferences to lift restrictions on revenue sharing from broadcast rights, which sounds similar to what you were talking about in the past and just now about Title IX stuff, about name, image, and likeness. But it seems like this one went even further, because the judge, Claudia Ann Wilkin, previously decided in favor of the plaintiffs for another court case called O'Bannon versus NCAA and Alston versus NCAA, which I believe those are the cases that may have related to Title IX. But in November 2023, Wilkin granted class action certification for the damages alleged to have been incurred, expanding the parties affected from the plaintiffs to any Division I athlete who played since 2016 with a 4-year statute of limitations.
The interesting part of this Title IX has everything to do with balance of men's and women's athletics. The name, image, likeness thing they recently allowed, which if you don't know, in order for you to be an athlete for the NCAA, period, you have to sign a document that relinquishes your rights to using your name, image, or likeness. You can't even say, and this is how it used to be. It's changed since then. You couldn't even put your name on, like, I'll teach you how to swim or help you become a better swimmer or a better quarterback in football. You couldn't say your name or even mention that you played at the school. You couldn't use your name in any way to make you make money, period. Name, image, likeness could never be sold. Whereas normal other students could go and be like, oh, I'm modeling for this clothing line. Not a problem. You can do it. You won't get kicked out of school for it. There's not an issue. You won't lose your eligibility as an athlete, but you would lose the ability to be able to be an athlete back in the day. If, say, I was a star quarterback and I decided, oh, I'm going to model for this clothing line and get paid for it, you'd lose your eligibility. You'd no longer be able to participate. So there are significant damages in that front because it was literally, you couldn't be an athlete if you didn't sign this. So the merits of that case, I understand. And I always agreed that name, image, and likeness should be allowed by student athletes. So I think that's a huge part of the damages they're ruling in favor of with that. It's just backdating it before they passed it to be able to allow athletes to use their name, image, and likeness.
Fascinating. This is fascinating. So there's some other information that I have about this that I'm not 100% sure is right, because in this one, it seems like there's some wrong information, like as if this was written by an AI, because this says the Supreme Court ruled on this, and it was the district court that ruled on this. So I'm not 100% sure about this, but I'll just say what this says because it's the only information I have. The plaintiffs claim that the NCAA's rules preventing athletes from receiving compensation beyond scholarships and necessary expenses constituted to an illegal restraint of trade. They argued that these rules suppressed wages and violated the Sherman Antitrust Act by preventing athletes from earning fair market value for their services. The NCAA defended its policy, stating that amateur status of the college athletes is fundamental principle of college sports. NCAA argued that allowing compensation would undermine the distinction between professional and collegiate sports. This all goes into what you were saying, and this is where this article goes a little awry, because it says the Supreme Court eventually took up the case, which I'm not 100% sure if it did. That might actually be true. I'm not 100% sure about that.
It might be the Supreme Court of the state. It might not be the U.S. Supreme Court, because that's...
It could be, but the courts made a decision in favor of the plaintiffs. But this one right here is the reason I'm saying this, and I'm not 100% sure if this is true. But the court's decision did not directly mandate payment to the athletes, but struck down NCAA restrictions on education-related benefits, e.g. scholarships for graduate schools, payments for academic achievements. So it meant that the payment couldn't be, compensation payment couldn't be, you get another scholarship to go to further education, or you get, more grants for academic achievement. It had to be monetary gain directly to the students. But I'm not 100% sure about that. But this other one from ESPN is saying that students could receive anywhere between, students affected by this could receive anywhere from $10,000 to $100,000 in compensation, and the settlement terms provide a 10-year window to fully pay out the $2.7 billion, and each player in the class will get an annual check worth 10% of the money that they are owed, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Like, basically, you're going to get a check in the mail for 10 years. It may not be enough to pay for everything or a full salary amount, but it's suddenly these students who did have their services sold to make the school's money are going to be compensated, which is just this is a kind of a groundbreaking, very drastically changing.
It's opening the door to a lot of things.
Yeah, it is just a little bit strange.
Yeah, so they're paying people out. The other thing, then this is an important part of this that people need to understand. The NCAA has multiple divisions of sports. I played in Division 3, there's Division 2, and there's Division 1. Division 1 is the highest tier of athletics. It's why you see the power conferences like the SEC, Big Ten, all of that. So with this particular instance, just based on that, it's the 5 major conferences. Those are the athletes that are going to qualify. That is Division 1, that is going to be the Big Ten, the ACC, the SEC, the Pac-12, and the Big 12. Those are the 5 conferences I'm imagining it is. I haven't fully checked that out, but those are the 5 that make sense, because those are the schools that have a whole bunch of television rights. They're the ones that show up in the championships of everything.
This is crazy. The more I read about it, the more I find this fascinating, because I didn't realize, because the way we were talking and the way you were describing it sounded like all of it was like settled and there wasn't anything happening. But apparently there were tons of things happening, many cases coming at once, a lot of negotiations behind the scenes. And this article from NPR asks the question, are the NCAA's antitrust woes over? And the answer is no, apparently. As much as the NCAA may hope this settlement puts the years of antitrust lawsuits behind them, on this one, experts agree the answer is no. Of particular concern is the cap that the settlement places on payout, which is set for now at 22% of the average revenue earned annually by Power 5 schools. That is a huge percentage of a lot of schools' revenue. That doesn't say if it's just revenue from sports. Is it just revenue from sports or still overall? I'm assuming it means revenue from sports.
It might be overall. And the reason for this is because there's an interesting thing that happens with major athletic performance at collegiate level. When a team wins a championship or does really well in a sport, whether it's men's basketball or men's American football, those are the big two. If they win a championship or go to bowl games, the amount of people that apply to attend that college and the amount of people that are admitted after a championship year is an insane percentage increase. I don't know the exact stat, but there is a study that when a team or a school wins a championship, the amount of people that then decide they want to go to that school is higher than if, say, they just didn't do well at all. So it affects overall revenue for the university. So this is going to drive an even bigger wedge between college athletes and regular college students that aren't athletes.
Absolutely. And this article goes further. It says that figure is much lower than the portion of revenue paid out in professional sports like the NFL or the NBA, where players take home about half of the revenue for all those things. But in those leagues, players have agreed to receive that share of revenue by way of collective bargaining agreements. So players in the NFL or the NBA have what's known as collective bargaining, or unions, or unionize, just like you collectively bargain, which is really good for those employees. But in college sports, athletes are not considered employees, even after this ruling, meaning the NCAA, weirdly, is still exposed to antitrust litigation. Because there's no agreement between the student body of athletes and the NCAA, because now there is precedence for the NCAA to unfairly treat the individual student body. It makes it so that pretty much anybody, if they feel like they're unfairly treated, especially from the other side of what you're saying, where students who are not athletes suddenly feel like they are unfairly treated compared to athletes because they have to pay an unbelievable amount to pay for these other athletes. That's not fair. I bet you could have a case there for students, regular students, not athletes, to sue the NCAA for unfair treatment by some exclusionary basis.
It's going to become the Wild West, is my bold prediction in what's going to happen with relation to lawsuits, but also in relation to athletes just going wherever who's going to pay them more. All of a sudden, more corporations are then going to be paying athletes more to go to particular schools. This opens so many doors of corruption and other things with relation to collegiate sports. And the funniest thing is the reason the NCAA formed was because it used to be that way.
I see.
Where an athlete would play for one team one week and then get offered more money to pay against that team the next week.
So where do you see this going? What do you see being the resolution of this? Like, what is, because it'll settle and there'll be kerfuffle and chaos, but it'll settle eventually. Where is it going to settle?
I think it's going to settle on the fact of separation from sport from all schools. Long term, school and sport will be completely separate.
You think there's just going to be a junior league of sports, and that's right out of high school? You join the junior league and they're alongside schools. Maybe they rent a school's arena to play in, but that's a complete separation?
Yeah, I think it's going to have to be that way in order for universities to protect themselves with relation to students feeling that they're improperly treated as athletes get paid while they pay to go to school, and then being like, well, if the university is paying these athletes, that doesn't seem right for me paying to go to this university.
Right, yeah.
And so it's going to ruin reputations of universities to the point to where they're going to force at least the big sports to have to separate and become select club programs, or in the way of baseball, minor leagues to the professional sporting organizations like the NFL and beyond.
Put this into an analogy of cookies.
Chocolate chip is the most common cookie. So your normal students are chocolate chip cookies. People love chocolate chip cookies. You know, they're good, they're standard, they do well, they satisfy. But now all of a sudden, all these fancy, like intricate, special cookies that are like double chocolate chip with extra icing, or you know, they're like the luxury cookies, right? They have this ability to draw attraction. Every bake shop wants to have chocolate chip cookies, but they also want to have those top tier cookies.
Yeah, with like cereal on top of it, or various like cookie crisps on it, cookies on cookies.
They're the ones that draw the eye. They bring people to be like, I want to go to that bake shop.
Or a donut with cookies on the donut. Like, it's crazy cookies, yeah.
All of a sudden, these chocolate chip cookies are the mainstay, right? They're paying their way to be in this bake shop by being chocolate chip cookies. But all of a sudden, the store's like, I'm gonna go for those other cookies. So it's like, oh, they're gonna draw people in. They're gonna make us sell more. But then the chocolate chip cookies are no longer being bought. The only thing that are being bought are the fancy cookies. And yeah, more cookies are showing up because those fancy cookies showed up.
But the bake shop is spending so much getting recipes from stealing recipes, and then all the ingredients going into these special cookies,
that all of a sudden the chocolate chip cookies get no attention and feel ostracized, feel neglected, feel used. So in order for that to happen, there has to be a separate bake shop for the fancy cookies, because the fancy cookies will draw the attention. They make the money, they do all of that, but they could still have a minor association to be like, but we have these great cookies, but we also have chocolate chip cookies.
Do you think, stepping outside the cookies for a second, I'm so hungry. Do you think it's going to be a thing where people just go to college, they get athletic they get like academic scholarships, you know, that still happens. They apply to the college, they go, they pay tuition. And then, you know, it just so happens that next door to the college, oh, that's the sports complex 9000. You can go try out for the team. Would there be no more like recruiting from high school for that? Or would there still be some of that?
There would be recruiting, but different. I think there would be academic recruiting because the academic side would want top tier academics for research, for stuff like that. So like, especially at the graduate level, the entity that has an association. So for example, Ohio State has great academics. They also have great athletics. But now it is not one entity. It is Ohio State University and then Buckeyes Athletics. So now these people that go to the school would be in close proximity, but they would not even need to go to school. It's like, oh, I'm a great athlete. I just want to go and join this club team on the Buckeyes. So a club team is basically a self-enclosed entity of select quality. So that team would recruit the athlete as the athlete alone. Nothing to do with academics. There would no longer be requirements for being good enough in academics for you even join their program. It would literally be entirely based on your athletic prowess.
Then what would happen for the relationship between the NCAA and the NFL? Would that 2-year gap rule still exist? Is that 2-year gap rule still only there to make it so the NCAA can make money in the first place?
That could still stay in stipulation, but I think that's a huge part of why there's an antitrust problem. I think what ends up happening is instead the NCAA potentially pulls itself away from academics, runs all of these different club organizations and the sport aspect of these separate bodies, but they are now the minor league for like the NFL. So that's like, you could jump to the NFL, but more often than not, you still, that unless you're an insane player like the LeBron James of football, you're going to generally go into the minor leagues, and then the minor leagues would feed into the professional rankings.
That's crazy. Oh, here's an interesting stat. I didn't even know this. This article from CBS is saying the entire system of college athletics was built on the idea of an unpaid labor force. With the highest cost in the sport eliminated, universities were free to spend nearly unlimited money on coaching and administrative salaries, facility upgrades, and more. According to USA Today analysis, programs wasted nearly $200 million on coaching buyouts alone during the 2023 season. An incomprehensible and frankly offensive amount of waste. 200 million just buying out, and I'm guessing that's buying out the contracts of other coaches in other schools just to get them to come over to your school $200 million.
Or to just fire them because they're not doing a great job. And I agree, that's a problem. That's been a problem in the NCAA dynamic. But that basis of that article, that first line you said was built on the backs of free labor, is not true. Historically speaking, the NCAA was organized in order to prevent corruption of athletes, first of all, with gambling, second of all, with relation to athletes just jumping from school to school. It was established in order to orchestrate and keep the athletic activities tied to the university in an educational system. It was before capitalism overran the sport industry.
Yeah, you're totally right, because that statement saying the entire system of college athletics was built on the idea of an unpaid labor force, that removes any of the actual incentives of like athleticism in the first place. Because when college athletics was first established, it's because people like sports and like playing it, and everyone wants to see if they're the best, and then it evolves from there. But the business of college athletics was built on the idea of unpaid labor is a more accurate statement.
Correct. In the more modern age, that makes more sense. But that statement as its own is misleading.
Because that's against the spirit of sports in general, which is that athleticism is good, competition is good, and people and us humans are meant to move around and breathe heavily.
And the foundations of sports being tied into education was not as a for-profit entertainment entity. It had to do with understanding the body, and the idea of the mind and body are connected. And in order for you to grow as an entire complete person within the educational system, involved not only expanding your mind through knowledge and research, but also moving your body and gaining control of your ability with high-level motor skills and understanding your limitations and pushing past the limitations of humans, which is entirely what the educational system is about, and why universities existed to begin with, is to expand our knowledge, is to grow. And part of that, in that expanding knowledge and to grow, is why athletics got tied to the university to begin with.
Okay, this is interesting because I think there still needs to be some language that's in the actual, like, settlement language, because all these articles have been saying approximately 20 million distributed to players, and I assume that was just an average based on one school, but that amount represents 22% of annual revenue for Power 4 schools as a whole, but it's not based per school. It is actually 20 million or so, and all schools have to do that. So any school that doesn't have that amount pays too much, and any school that makes, like, let's say Ohio State makes $280 million a year, that's actually what they made from 2022 to 2023, 22% of that is way more than 20 million, but they're not paying that. So there needs to be some language that is written into there, so it's going to be there, because Louisiana Monroe apparently had a total athletic budget of only $19.4 million, so they would pay more than what they have.
There's a lot of issues with this, because the other thing that falls into this, and I've said it numerous times and I'll say it again, it doesn't think about the other sports that have no sense of profit, in fact, operate at a loss, because they do not get people buying tickets, people are not buying merch, people are not doing the things to support those organizations, those sports within the university. Your gymnastics, your water polos, your swimming, your lower tier sports that aren't the big power sports, a lot of which had been cut or changed around with Title IX because of the ramifications of Title IX and how universities chose to go about it in order to have your basketballs and footballs. All of a sudden, it's going to hurt them so much. And that's the part that people don't understand, is they see 10% of what university athletics are, and that 10% are the big schools of football, Division I football, and that percentage is actually smaller than 10%. But I'm saying based on those schools' overall docket of sports they offer, the ones you're seeing are those like three major ones, like your hockeys, your basketball, your football, sometimes women's basketball.
But let's not get away from the fact that there was a trust, or was a monopoly occurring, and there were these big organizations that were doing everything in their power to create a situation that was taking advantage of players and making as much money for themselves as possible. So getting that knocked down is important.
It is important. I do agree with that. And the problem was, and I've talked about this a lot, is the NCAA and how they operated and how they forced certain things is what caused them to fall into this issue to begin with, because of their own greed. When I did papers on this, I talked about how you could make amateurism come back. And there are a lot of different things that they didn't do, and which is why it resulted in this antitrust relationship. And I can spell that out in the further episode of how I would have handled things and how it could have been fixed and prevented this problem to where it reached this point of lawsuits and the antitrust problem.
What would you have done?
Well, the main thing is there'd no longer be a requirement to go to the NCAA school. I would force the NFL and NBA and all professional athletic associations to be able to allow signing of 18-year-olds straight out of high school. Scholarships would no longer be one-year renewable contracts. They would be guaranteed throughout the educational principle. So if they decided they wanted a degree for 4 years, they would have 4 years to complete that degree. Or if they wanted a 5-year degree that took more time, that scholarship would be for the entire thing. That would be covered. It would be guaranteed whether they got hurt, whether they decided they wanted to switch schools, any of that, it was guaranteed. That school covered. Next thing, athletes always have the right to use their name, image, and likeness, whether it's as an athlete in general. You are a human just like other students. You have the ability to use that. The other thing is fixing the relationship of the monetary gain of the corporate capitalism structure that became the NCAA to where you could no longer have sporting events that interrupt classes, and you would have only a set amount of practice time, no optional bullshit that everybody knew was required. You had set limitations on practice, so it was to the point to where your education and the true definition of student before athlete came to where education was prioritized because that's what their scholarship's for, above athletic performance and championships.
Ridiculous statements. Put this man in prison. Anyway, yeah, people don't realize that competition is like corporations' worst nightmare. They hate it. And in all reality, the NFL and the NCAA are in competition with each other because they're competing for people's eyeballs and they're competing for people's attention. Even if they're selling a similar product, that's the whole point of competition, is people selling a similar product, which is football playing or basketball playing. It's just different people doing it. And so the collegiate level, people often think of it as a natural complement to like the NCAA complements the NFL or the NBA or any kind of professional level sport, because it's like, oh, it's a natural stair step. But if you think about it, they're actually competing with each other for like, you know, the Midnight Madness. What is it? March Madness.
Yeah.
Midnight Madness.
Midnight Madness. That sounds like it should be the name of something in the sex sport. Midnight Madness.
Maybe. And then you have the NBA's thingamabob championship.
Finals.
Right. Yes. And so you know that these never land on the same time as each other, right? It's because those two corporations that are distinct agree to not do that for the benefit of everyone and themselves. And sometimes that's okay, but most of the time it's exactly that. It's because they can make more money this way. And if they're competing for players, then they have to think about each other as enemies, which is how you want companies to think about each other. You want companies to look at another company and go, I fucking hate you and I want to destroy you. What you don't want is those two companies go, let's hate them, the consumers, and let's do everything not to fuck each other over and milk them of the most money. Handshake, handshake, handshake. Lobby Congress, lobby Congress. That's what you don't want.
Like you were pointing out, they should be in competition. They haven't been because of the way rules were written about the NCAA or when you're allowed into the professional levels, the scheduling in order to make sure that you don't overlap the Super Bowl with the college football playoff championship. There was a level of collusion, I believe. It's never been proven necessarily, but it certainly is pretty much showcased. I think everybody there's an understanding between two.
Absolutely, there has been.
And so that's the problem and why they have the antitrust problem to begin with. And ultimately, they should just have minor leagues like baseball. You know, baseball has their college teams, but they're also, you can just sign and go to play in the minors right out of high school. And the NBA used to have that, and they've switched to not having that and then switched back to allowing it. But the NFL has never done that. And there have been stipulations of 2 years removed from high school, but they word it to be that way as 2 years removed from high school instead of you have to play 2 years in college level first. Because if they said you have to play 2 years in college first, then that would be very obvious collusion. You guys ever notice when you're driving and all the gas prices all seem to be the same on the same street? Believe it or not, I'm gonna blow your mind.
Oh, I'm ready. Like the stickers.
Gas stations look at each other's prices and copy each other. They 100% collude.
Absolutely. Well, they don't always collude. Sometimes they collude. Sometimes the same person owns all 4 gas stations on a street corner. But collusion can work both ways. Like that kind of thing, that's actually competition. If one gas station on the opposite corner goes down a penny, the other ones do it too. So it can work that way, but the collusion that you don't want is them all agreeing not to lower it. That's the bad stuff.
Which is the part they don't tell you, but I used to work at a gas station. I was a manager at United Dairy Farmers. Wade's talked about this before.
Arrest him, he's a colluder.
The way we would set prices, the way our management would tell us would be just like, oh yeah, just set it the same price as the one down the street. If they went up, we'd get the order to go up. Had nothing to do with supply, had nothing to do with cost. It was watching what the other people did and matching them.
But that's so strange to me, because in me, if I own that gas station, if the other person across the street went up like 10 cents, I'd go, well, I'm going to keep mine 10 cents lower because everyone's going to buy mine. People will drive across town to buy mine. They'll waste the gas that they saved just to buy it from mine. Isn't that how it should be?
Right. So there was an interesting thing that happened one time when I was working there. We always followed the marathon that was down the street. We would look at their price because it's not within sight of us. So they used to have us send a driver down to go look at it and come back. And there's a reason why you can't look on the internet aside from crowdsourced information of gas prices, because they purposely do it that way. But there was this one instance where the gas station across the street from us was 5 cents lower. We're not supposed to match them. Corporate called us and said, no, stay where you're at. And then the guy in charge of the entire gas department of our station pulled into our gas station, looked at the prices, explained who he was, and called corporate. And then he said, lower your price 5 cents lower than theirs.
Cool.
It was cool, but also it's like there's some level of collusion that can't be proved right now, but it's really bad.
I mean, it's absolutely. And how can anybody keep track of it? By paying attention and holding them accountable, by taking them by the throats and then saying, don't do that anymore. I will sue you into non-existence because together we are strong.
Yeah.
Anyway, I say we make this podcast a publicly traded company. We sell shares. And then we all collude to say don't sell.
You wanna know what's funny? There's gonna be ads on here that people are gonna accuse us about. Oh my God, it's an ad for this. And we're like, we don't do that. We don't control it. If we don't say it, it's not associated with us.
What we'll do is we'll just start being actually excited about the products that we do like.
Like our merch.
Which you should check out at store.gmfst.com.
And our wonderful fans and community. Where can you find them?
The subreddit?
Yes, you can be involved in the podcast with some jacuzzes and even potentially have an episode covered that you want covered by using the proper flair for episode ideas and suggestions and giving us a story and something interesting that makes us want to cover it.
Incredible.
Originally, we were going to cover the Cotswold Olympics that are going to take place on the 31st, but man, the news was too important. We had to cover it.
It really was. We'll get them next time.
Yeah, we'll just have to talk about how the Cotswold Olympic Games went because it'll be after they happen. Which, by the way, Mark, if you don't know, and I'm building hype for this because it's going to be a good episode, one of the events at that is shin kicking.
Oh, why?
That's the competition, shin kicking. It's also got wrestling, dancing, throwing. It's a lot of fun. Relay race, camaraderie. Tug of war is one of the events too. So it's an old like field games-esque games.
Well, that's fun. But not as fun as buying our merch. Store.gmfst.com. Just type it into your browser. store.gmfst.com.
We'll see you over there, sporting your merch at sporting events.
Yes. Get your eye finger horts. I do not finger horse. I do not. I finger sports.
So what I normally screw up doing is saying shit. I didn't expect you to.
Man, people that didn't listen to the very end of this episode, they're going to be very confused by some people making statements on the subreddit. I did not say what you think I said. You'll just have to go to store.gmfst to find out.
Yeah, I guess so. All right. Bye.
All right, bye.